Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another review here on Star Wars Lads. We're talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, and The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 13. We're going to dive in full spoilers to both episodes. Before we do so, though, please hit that like button. It'll really help us out. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We're going to give you a lot more content moving forward here on Star Wars Lads for everything Mandalorian and Bad Batch. So make sure you're subscribed. If you're not checking out the polls, our semi-final is coming up for our Star Wars March Movie Madness and TV bracket. If you'd like to be on the video recap immediately after the polls conclude, we are giving you the option to send in your bracket. So we have posted the link, fill out that bracket, send it to us on the email attached as well. We will feature you and talk about your brackets in our video. Let's dive into the episodes though, because we have a lot to talk about here, specifically with The Mandalorian. And we're going to start there with episode 3. This was called Chapter 19, The Convert, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, the director of Minari. And this episode was the longest one we've ever gotten in The Mandalorian. The entire show's run, this was one of the longest episodes we've gotten, and I think it used its time very effectively. We had so many cool things, so many references just all around. We got Coruscant, we got the like the cop droids that are in Clone Wars, like a redesign, slightly redesigned, repainted version of them, references to like the Bendu. There's so many things referenced across this episode that were just really, really nice, and I really enjoyed it. Sanak, what did you think of The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 3, Chapter 19, The Convert?
I immediately went online and someone said, "Wow, looks like the book of the Mandalorian decided to go with an episode of Andor," and I'm like, it certainly is different. As we were talking about in our predictions and whatnot, Din still had to wake up, just confirming with Din that he didn't see the mythosaur. She was like, "Okay, good to know." But what we jumped right into an incredible action sequence. I mean, we'd already seen it in the trailer a little bit, but seeing it fully fleshed out, aerial dogfighting with fully TIE interceptors and bombers destroying her castle. That was like a shocking open. I like Din landing back by his N1 and slipping. It still shows that he's still the guy who's, he's not 100% foolproof when it comes to his capabilities. He's still making a lot of mistakes. Man, seeing Mandalorian ship in full flight, the entire dogfighting was insane to me. An insane opening, and then seeing even more come on the horizon. It's like, well, it's not Gideon. It's clear time has really passed at some point between season 2 and 3. Now that raises questions like, who is it? Is this a new warlord? Is this the big bad that we all think that we're building into? Like, just transition almost too neatly into Coruscant. I was very surprised by that. Seeing Pershing, seeing the whole Amnesty program, seeing Coruscant in its full glory. I think one thing people were begging for in the sequels was just, what was the New Republic like? Even if we're going to see the end of it, at least show us like 5 to 10 minutes. We got that here, and I think this also pleased a lot of the Legends side fan of me too, because we got to see like the New Republic banners quite literally draped on the building instead of some like digital projection. I thought that was all very nice and neat. And then we got to see the unnamed communications officer from Gideon. I don't know. I felt very uneasy about her from the start, and that is definitely intentional. But she's trying so hard. At least her actor is to just be like, no, I'm reformed. I went through the whole rehabilitation like you. That pushes him towards this quest of getting what he needs for his cloning, which he presents in the opera house, and also teases us a little bit with this. I think he's talking about Strandcast here when he's talking about all the DNA segments. So the fact that she was betraying him, setting him into his trap after putting him on this exciting adventure that he felt like he was alive for and he was doing the right thing. Seeing the New Republic immediately use the Mind Flayer, which we've been hearing about, and now we got to finally see in action. Yeah, I mean, it's very clear to me that she is Imperial aligned, and then to see her, like, I guess, protect the secrets of the cloning by fully using the Mind Flayer setting of this little like relaxation setting that was originally being discussed. But something I really enjoyed, the appreciation of like feeling like we got to see a little bit of the post Return of the Jedi stuff that we saw in the special editions, Legends, some of the canon influences, even High Republic with the canyon, the mountain peak. That was a really nice touch for me as well. And then we just jump back to Din taking Bo to the covert and being redeemed in their eyes, and Bo being accepted into the way, at least temporarily, as long as she wants to. It feels very serialized this season. A lot of really cool things, visually incredible. Like I was so impressed, but yeah, I really I really enjoyed this episode. I think this is one that'll hit me even more on the second watch.
I agree. I think this episode is just packed with detail from top to bottom. It's a lot of really interesting stuff. To echo that last point, I mean this show is going in a completely different direction. I think for some of those people who are like, this doesn't, these first couple episodes haven't necessarily felt as Mandalorian as they've hoped. That's because you're used to episodic. This show is going very serial, and I'm really liking that. I prefer that. I want to look forward to each week. And we also talked a lot about in kind of the weeks and months leading up to this season, really the years leading up to this season, about how much of Rangers of the New Republic is really getting assimilated into the show. And this was an episode that probably would have been more featured in a show like that. But I really dug the detail. I mean, as Star Wars fans like us, canon fans and people who just really want to see this time period fleshed out, every chance we can get to go to the New Republic or any chance we can get to see things that we haven't seen. I mean, this is the first appearance of Coruscant post Return of the Jedi that we have seen. This is a long episode, and we still got a good 20 minutes of the 60 minutes with Mando. So I was pretty happy with the disparity between time here. The details packed from top to bottom. Like you're mentioning the mountain at the, it was like a little fair that was going on, and in that fair, the background music is the Resistance theme, which was really interesting. So I think one thing that is interesting though is this episode it continues to hammer home the point that canon New Republic is very different from Legends New Republic. Like they are dismantling all this tech. In Legends, they use most tech. They're using Star Destroyers. They're using all this material and all these weapons to continue to fight the Empire. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that in canon, the Empire is basically dead after 3 years. There's only small remnant left versus Legends, where it continues for another 20 years and then turns into a new government after that. There's some stark differences, but this continues to hammer home all the differences. But I really dug everything, an entire look at the planet of Coruscant, which is extremely important in Star Wars, and we've kind of just ignored because it was prequel related when we were starting off canon, and now we're slowly getting back into with Andor and with this and with Bad Batch. The dogfighting, this is the best dogfighting we've seen since Rogue One. This show has given us dogfighting in each of the seasons, and each time it's gotten progressively better. But this season, by far, between the asteroid fight in the first episode and this one, like we're on a whole nother level of visual effects being offered to this show. And again, the ending, I really like the way this ends. I like that Bo-Katan is reluctantly kind of a part of the Children of the Watch, but we see the progression of her character in this episode. We see her home destroyed. We see in last episode her going from her persona in episode one of like, I don't want anything to do with you, Din. You took the dark saber from me, and now all my troops have left me. Everything that's anchored me to the past, my Mandalorian past, has left me except my castle. Well, we see the castle destroyed in this episode now too. And so she has nowhere to turn. She has no family. We hear her reminisce a lot about her family in the past. She has the burden of being the one who's seen the emergence of the mythosaur. And really the only friend she has is Din Djarin. So I like seeing her join the Children of the Watch. I could see her, because we've seen her already ingratiate herself with so many different groups of Mandalorians, really searching for her identity, whether it is the Death Watch or whether it is as the leader of all the Mandalorians and rebels, or now in Children of the Watch. I could see her actually becoming a very kind of devout part of this whole thing. I could see her really, really diving into this culture. And those are our thoughts on The Mandalorian, Chapter 19. Let's talk about the Bad Batch this week. So the Bad Batch was, as we predicted, a very, very simple episode. And I think personally, if we hadn't predicted this, I would have been quite disappointed with this episode, considering it is the third to last week of the Bad Batch. We still have 3 more episodes left, but 2 of them are on the same day. So we're building towards the finale. But we analyzed it in predictions, speculations last week. We talked about Pabu. What could that mean? We didn't have anything Star Wars related that it could possibly mean. So we predicted a planet or a person. It was a planet. We also talked about how episode 13 of season 1 was the Mines episode with Sid, and how that had come after we had done a lot of really, really good episodes that felt like they were building towards something. And we just kind of slammed on the brakes with the Sid episode. Luckily, we saw this coming, and for me, I wasn't super disappointed. But this was not a very eventful episode. But Sonic, there were some things to pull out of this, some good things to talk about. What were your thoughts overall on episode 13 of the Bad Batch season 2?
Yeah, I think overall I was pretty pleased, to be honest. I know, like we said, we did lower our expectations, and that certainly helped us there. It's simple, but its simplicity is what I appreciated. I appreciated that the Bad Batch are reunited with Phee. Again, I will double down on this. I don't know if everyone really loves Phee or not, but I know we both appreciated more of her treasure hunting, more so than say just bounty of the week sort of vibe that we kind of get. There's not really much that happens here, but we get to see Omega at least be allowed to be a kid. We get to see the Bad Batch relax. And yeah, I mean, we just have our typical like something goes wrong. In this case, it's a huge sea surge, sucks out all the water, and then a huge tsunami rolls over. The biggest thing that happens in this episode is that they decide to stay. That I also did like that Tech was definitely picking up on Phee flirting with him this time, and he was smiling back. And obviously, it's going to be upended next episode. I hope that doesn't come to the disruption of Pabu's people. I hope it's something that draws them out. That would be my ideal hope of like a Rex Echo contacting them or something of that nature. There's a good possibility with how sad a clone life usually is that the people that they connect with are inadvertently dragged into a bigger mess than they expected.
Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility. I liked this episode for what it did for the Bad Batch. I mean, it gives us a look at them trying to transition beyond Sid. I mentioned last time when we talked about Sid that I think, why don't they just go work for Rex or with Echo? Like, they could be the covert ops team for that. Like, just the same types of missions, but with Rex and Echo, or with somebody more important than Sid, feels a whole lot better when we do these kind of side missions. But this was nice because it feels like we're establishing a new home for the Bad Batch. Like, this is actually an important episode for maybe not character development or maybe nothing really essential, but it's like this is might be the new location. We might move away from Ord Mantell officially, and this might be it. And there were a couple other things I liked about this episode. One thing I wrote in my notes immediately was I actually really enjoyed that opening scene with Phee, and it was kind of a Indiana Jones Temple of Doom style like dinner table exchange for an artifact. I thought that was really cool, and they did some things with camera movement there that were a little more advanced than usual for Bad Batch action. Phee and Tech definitely are gonna be a thing. It seems like I would have been disappointed with this episode, no doubt, if I didn't have my expectations lowered. It is the type of thing we've done in the show a lot, which is gear up the audience to be very excited for a recurring storyline only to throw in an episode that doesn't have anything to do with the recurring storyline. And hopefully we get back to the main storyline in 14, because if we don't get into it in 14, I think we're really in trouble. But I think we will. I think the next episode we'll get back to it, and then we'll be talking about the finale. But we're going to talk about episode 14 and our predictions and speculation, as well as the Mandalorian predictions and speculation. Those will be coming out on Friday and Sunday, respectively. Make sure you're checking those videos out. And that's going to do it for our coverage and our reviews of The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, and The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 13. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you haven't liked the video, please do so. Subscribe to the channel. It'll help us out. We're trying to reach 1,500 subs here soon. Comment below. Let us know what you thought of these two episodes. Make sure you're voting in the polls and checking out our Jedi Fallen Order live streams and live Q&As on Friday. It's a very laid-back format. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.